Good morning, everybody. I'm Sonia Clark, and I represent First Pathway Partners in South Africa. Thank you to everybody for joining us today to share our experience, to keep us all connected. During difficult times. We have a tremendous group of people with us today, and our experts can't wait to share their insights and knowledge with you. Starting, I'd like to introduce you to our first presenter, Mr. Ramin Asgard, our Senior Vice President for Global Business Development, followed by Mr. Grant Kaplan on Immigration, and followed by Mr. Mir Farouk from Range Developments. Before I turn over to Ramin, I'd just like to ask everyone that's not presenting to turn off their cameras and their sound, and questions can be typed in on the chat icon on the right-hand side. Before I hand over to Ramin, I'd just like to give you a bit of background. Mr. Asgard is the Senior Vice President of Global Business Development with First Pathway Partners, a US-based investment and global services firm, and he's also a national security thought leader, attorney, business development, technology, entrepreneurship expert, and independent consultant based in Manhattan and globally. Mr. Asgard's work is focused on global market access, analysis, national security matters. And previously, Mr. Asgard was a highly decorated veteran US Foreign Service officer with the Department of State. Mr. Asgard's memberships and associations include Phi Beta Kappa member, Council of Foreign Relations, he's a lifetime member, Federal Bar Association, and also IIUSA, Invest in the USA member, and chair of IIUSA Veteran Support Committee. Mr. Asgard also holds a JD from Tulane University, a master's in international relations from the University of Pennsylvania, and a BA summa cum laude from Temple University. Over to Mr. Ramin Asgard.
Thanks very much, Sonia, and welcome everyone. It's great to be with you this morning. It's a challenging time for us all, dealing with this, the health challenges that we're dealing with right now. I mean, one of the things that this has shown us as we work our way through this situation, a shared situation that's global, is the limitations we can have on our freedom. And when we look at global immigration, investment-based immigration, really that's about translating the hard work that you all have put in as entrepreneurs, as business people, as professionals, investors, into freedom. And that's the freedom to travel and freedom to live where you choose to live, raise your family where you choose to be. And we can all experience firsthand what it's like when that freedom is not available. So what we're talking about today is that very freedom, the freedom to live, work, invest, do business wherever you would like. And in our case, our company's case, First Pathway Partners, we're an American company. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about us. I have a presentation for you. So First Pathway Partners has a distinguished history as it's been founded in 2008 by our chairman and CEO, Mr. Kraft. We're very proud that we've brought $1 billion in investment into the United States, and that we have 100% success rate for our clients in obtaining them immigration benefits. We'll get into that a little bit more and what that means for you a little bit further down the road. This is our global team. You can read about them in detail on our website. They're distributed around the world at our headquarters in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as well as many locations, including today, Durban, South Africa. First Pathway Partners is a creation of Mr. Bob Kraft, our chairman and CEO. Mr. Kraft is a highly respected worldwide business leader, opinion leader, thought leader in the space of investment, immigration. And in addition to being chairman and CEO of First Pathway, he is the three-time president of IIUSA, Invest in the USA, which is the National Trade Association for investment-based immigration programs for the U.S. We have been cited, quoted, appeared in many, many media publications, television, print media around the world. Always, we maintain the high comes for us, and you'll see it when you learn more about our EB5 program. Now, the EB5 program is the U.S. Program that allows immigration to the United States by investment. It delivers permanent residency, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. By the way, EB means employment-based, fifth category of employment-based green cards, and this is the EB5 program. It's been around a while. It was created in 1990 and requires a minimum investment of $900,000. With that investment, the applicant, who is the investor, their spouse, and any of their unmarried children receive permanent residency. Now, at first, it's conditional, meaning that you have 2 years to show that you actually are running your investment and it's proceeding as per the requirements. After that 2 years, that conditional status is lifted and your permanent residence is permanent. After 2 years and creation of 10 jobs, I should say, one of the requirements in addition to the $900,000 is the creation of 10 jobs. At First Pathway, we don't just create 10 jobs in our project. We build in cushions so that there are many, many jobs created by our projects. And we'll get into what a typical EB5 project is in just a second. You pass a basic criminal background check. That's about it. You do have to document the source of the funds that you're using. It's not required that you document the source of your entire net worth. We're just talking about the investment capital that you're putting in. You don't have to have specific experience or speak English fluently, and you don't have to stay in the United States on a full-time basis. The EB5 gives you and your family maximum freedom to pursue your lives in the U.S. and travel to 185 countries around the world without a visa or visa upon entry. You can live and work anywhere in the U.S. You set up your business anywhere and have access to grants. The benefits you derive through the education are really for your children, or if your spouse is interested in pursuing education, those educational benefits are significantly reduced tuition. You can access all kinds of other benefits, including healthcare benefits in the United States. And if you hold your green card for 5 years, you're a permanent resident for 5 years, you can apply for citizenship to the United States. Our process that we've done with the EB5 is based on extremely careful vetting of projects. Now, what are some of the projects that we're talking about? Hotels. We are right now wrapping up and has been fully subscribed a JW Marriott Hotel in Anaheim, California, across from Disneyland. Office buildings, hospitals, business franchise opportunities. Those are the types of projects we do, but they're screened very carefully so that the risk is minimal and that your hard-earned capital is preserved and that there's a return involved. And when we do this, we underwrite the programs, meaning that we look at all the financials extremely carefully. We do studies of the market and how the project is going to do based on a number of factors. We apply this to every single project and do this primarily to mitigate any risk that your project could do anything but succeed. Once the project is underway, once your investment is made and there's a project, and in most cases, EB5 projects involve a pooling of capital by many investors, 50 investors, 100 investors. That's the way that you can help finance something like an office building with investment coming from abroad. So with our process, we also manage the investment very carefully and make sure that it remains secure. What does this mean? Well, the passion that we have for our investors, that's quoted up there by our CFO, Scott Miswald, is about making sure we assure the safety of their investment and that they receive their full investment that they've made back. Now, it's not just a business investment, it's also an immigration process. So there are two tracks to it, the immigration track and the investment track. We have a 100% track record, First Pathway Partners does, over the course of our entire company's existence on obtaining green cards for our clients and ensuring that their 100% of their capital is returned. We're excited about this visa. The EB5 is an immigrant visa. Through it, you derive permanent residence. The E2 is called a non-immigrant visa. Through it, you derive renewable, long-term, temporary residence in the United States. Now, we have a distinguished attorney here, Mr. Kaplan, who's going to go into greater detail on the E2. So I'm going to spend a little bit less time on it and go through some of the just key highlights. The E2 classification has to do with whether or not your country has a treaty, usually a treaty of commerce, with the United States of America. If it does, then citizens of that country are qualified for the E2. If it doesn't, then they have to look at becoming citizens of a country which does qualify for E2. And we'll get into that in a little while. The investment, by the way, on an E2 is substantial. There's no fixed amount generally. We've set up a project and we have a fixed amount that we believe will deliver the exact results that you're looking for. However, it's a substantial investment amount. And finally, you need to have at least 50% ownership. I'll let Mr. Kaplan get into the benefits of the E2 visa in a little while, but it's a very versatile visa. And a key thing, as a former immigration attorney myself, I've had clients who've had E2s for decades. They just maintain their business and renew their E2 and continue to live and work and prosper in the United States. Same basic requirements as the EB5. The big difference is a lot of E2s, especially if you're applying from abroad, will be done at the embassy or consulate in your home country. You do, again, have to document the source of the $300,000 that you're investing in the project. We do the same process with the E2 project and projects that we look at as we do with our EB5 projects. We are looking to make these so solid and as investments, as business opportunities, that they return a strong investment to you, that the immigration benefits are assured, and that you can have peace of mind knowing that you've chosen to invest your hard-earned money in a project with predictable and secure returns, and that you'll receive your immigration benefits. As our Senior Vice President John Widmer has said, some of our clients face backlogs. Now, fortunately, South Africa doesn't face a backlog if they're applying for an EB5. Some countries do. And what some folks do is they apply for the E2 while they're waiting for that backlog to clear. That's not really applicable to you all, but the main benefit of the E2 is relevant there, which is fast residency. The E2, you can be in the United States in a few months, whereas with some of the other employment-based immigration methods, or even immigrant methods, it may take you substantially longer. Also, you receive income distributions right away. In many cases, the income distribution on an EB5 is after the project has gotten to a very advanced stage and is ready to return capital to investors. With the E2 project, you're returning capital right away. One exception I'd like to make is that we have an EB5 project, which does return capital, does return income, and provide distributions right away. So first pathway is different. We put the client first and think of what your needs would be. For the E2, it's you want to get there quickly and you want to have predictable returns. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our E2. This is something we're real excited about. The E2 that we have, this project that we've developed, is a franchise restaurant offering in a restaurant that does Asian fast casual dining called Teriyaki Madness. The benefits of a franchise are let's talk about here, not so much the benefits of the E2, which we've touched on and we'll get into in greater detail. The benefits of the franchise is that unlike some E2s, which are new businesses that are created from scratch as startups, which is certainly wonderful as an entrepreneurial venture, the risk, however, is substantial. And many consular officers, and having been a former consular officer for the U.S. Department of State, I can say that this is the case. Many consular officers will look at a startup as pretty risky and pretty speculative. As a result, they're going to comb through your application very, very carefully. If they find any real issues, you're going to have perhaps some difficulty. With our franchise, this is a known commodity. Teriyaki Madness has been in business since 2003. So what you get is you get a known commodity being presented at your visa interview. The consular officer can check on it quite easily. They have a very significant social media and online and other presence. All of your documents are corporate documents that are backed up by a track record of 17 years of business operations. It's a known commodity. It's something you can feel secure with, not just at the visa application stage, but as you renew the visa every few years. On top of that, we have arranged with Teriyaki Madness that Restaurant Sherpas, the restaurant management affiliate, will do the day-to-day management of your restaurant franchise, allowing you to be free to pursue your ownership interest, meaning keeping track of how the business is doing, but at an owner's level, not as a manager's level. They take care of the day-to-day accounting, human relations, reports, and so on. And as the owner, you're of course entitled to gain access to that information as you need. The trend in these restaurants is that fast casual is the fastest growing restaurant franchise category in the United States. 555% growth over the last 2 decades. So we worked carefully to choose this project and partner with Teriyaki Madness because of the significant investment benefit and business benefit, while making sure that the investment secured the immigration benefits that you need to have. In this case, as an E2 investor, you invest in the business, you participate in income distributions, and you receive those directly. You do have the capacity to sell your interest at some point. The investment is a $300,000 equity investment. That gains you 50% ownership in the franchise restaurant. And this is an actual restaurant from the ground up. You're picking the location. You're working with both First Pathway partners and Teriyaki Madness to ensure that you're getting the location that you do want. And then you receive 50% of the distributions of the restaurant. What does that mean? Well, these are some numbers from 2018, and I'll let you take a look at those. We can certainly drill in further detail if there are questions. The 2019 performance is going to be out shortly. We'll make those available as they come out. The key point is look at those profits. Remember, this is an immigration benefit. In general, immigration benefits are not assessed on whether or not they deliver a return. We believe that you should have a strong return and receive your immigration benefits. In that 10-year cumulative distribution, you see that more than double your investment has come back to you. That's for each investor, not for each restaurant. So you're as an investor getting double, you're well over double your money back. And again, our estimates are conservative. We're basing this on the average over the track record of the franchise. Your returns could be higher, and so those distributions are very strong as an investment. I will let Mr. Kaplan talk about the E2 as a visa. It's an exciting visa. One thing that I want to tie together before we move on to Mr. Kaplan is the E2 is requires a treaty. If you're from a country that does not have such a treaty, you do require another citizenship, another passport to be able to do it. That's why we have our distinguished partner from Range Development speaking after Mr. Kaplan, because you would need another passport which has a full validity E2 visa that goes with it. So that's an exciting part of the program today, is that all of the features that you would need to emigrate to the United States through investment are sitting with you in this presentation. So that wraps up my comments. I'm honored to introduce Mr. Grant Kaplan, an attorney at law, originally a South African, with over 35 years of experience. He's based in Boca Raton, Florida, but has offices worldwide, including a representative office in London. He is admitted to the federal and state courts of Washington and Colorado, and to the U.S. Supreme Court. He's a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, the Federal Bar Association, and the American Bar Association. One comment is that Mr. Kaplan's focus is on business immigration, which is an extremely highly specialized area of immigration law and is not a do-it-yourself part of immigration law. It's wonderful to have him here, and we're honored. I'm honored to introduce you to Mr. Grant Kaplan.
Yes, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending upon where you come from. As you can see, it's somewhat early in the US, even though it's probably in the late morning in South Africa. I'm going to talk today about E2 visas and a little bit of information about EB5 visas. Some information about us. We're a firm of US immigration attorneys. We have 4 attorneys in our office, 15 paralegals, all burrowing away, doing their work and processing visa applications. It's important to note that even in these trying times, the US Immigration Service is processing visa applications, both non-immigrant and immigrant visa applications, and therefore whatever visas we talk about today certainly will be able to be processed in the ordinary course, including premium processing, expedited processing, which I'll talk about. A couple of other points. We're independent attorneys. We do not we're not partners with anyone either in this presentation or anybody else. Our duty is to you, the prospective client, and we'll certainly look after you guys, or after you guys, as they say in the United States, from start to finish. We have a great team. As I say, 4 attorneys, 15 paralegals. We will guide you all the way through the process. The other point about today and all of our presentations is that these are interactive sessions. So you will see a chat button, and you're most welcome to ask your questions as we go along. Certainly we'll have a question and answer session when we complete it, and we'll be happy to answer you. And also this presentation will be available afterwards online. You will be able to see my contact details on the screen now. Our website, american-immigration-lawyer.com. There is our telephone number, and you can also access us on Facebook under US Visas and Green Cards or Immigration to USA. All right, so let us talk about the process of getting into the United States. How do you come into the United States? Of course, there's various ways to come in. Now, the first way we're going to talk about, and the main way we're going to talk about today, is what is known as an E2 visa. Now, an E2 visa is a visa which is available for citizens of certain countries. Unfortunately, South Africa is not one of those countries. The US has an agreement with certain countries, and those citizens of those countries can come into the United States and invest in a business in the United States, or start up a business in the United States by investing what immigration calls a significant amount of money. So what to do if you're not a citizen of one of those countries? The answer, logically, is to become a citizen of one of those countries. And today we will give you the formula as to how you can do that. And some countries make it easier, and some countries make it more difficult to obtain citizenship of those countries. So we'll talk about becoming a citizen of one of these countries in a while. Let's assume that you're able to get over the slight hurdle, and slight hurdle it is, not major. And once you're a citizen of these countries, we can certainly jump in and take over and process the E2 visa for you. Incidentally, any process that you begin, whether it's beginning by a citizenship of another country, today we're going to talk about Grenada, or any other country, we will oversee the process with you from day number one. So if you decide today that, yes, you want to become a citizen of Grenada and you want to apply for an E2 visa, we are the guys that will help you. We will help you to oversee the process to get the citizenship in Grenada, and then we will physically process the E2 visa application for you. So what is the E2 visa? This is a visa category which is established by starting a business in the United States. The business needs to show that it is viable. Does not need to be making a profit necessarily. It can be an existing business, as Ramin has explained to you, coming into one of his franchises or one of the existing businesses certainly does help, or it can be a new business. You need to invest at least $100,000 into the business in order to get an approved E2 visa. Now, under the E2 visa, as I've indicated, it can be a brand new business. The hurdles are somewhat more substantial if you do that, because you need to be able to persuade a consular officer that this is going to be viable, and therefore we need substantial business plans. You need to show the money is sitting in the bank and you've taken all steps necessary to get yourself together to come in. In other words, but for the visa application being approved, you're ready to start operating your business. There are no constraints as to how long the business needs to be established for. This is a non-immigrant visa, so you need to show that you have an intent to depart the United States. In other words, you do need to maintain some kind of ties to your home country in order to show to the immigration service that you intend at some point to leave. A statement to this effect may be sufficient. You don't necessarily need to keep an existing home abroad in your own country. This visa has certain advantages. You're able to get this visa indefinitely for as long as the business continues to run. So typically you'd be given 2 to 3 years to set up, and then this would be extended for 5 years at a time, typically, irrespective of your country of origin. Now, it may be that you are a citizen of an E2 visa country already. So let's say, for example, it could be any random country, and of course you'd need to check with us and we'd be able to advise you. So for example, if you have dual citizenship, or if you're a citizen of Lithuania or Israel or Colombia in South America or Congo in Africa or most European countries, it may be that already you have the right to come in under an E2 visa and therefore would not have to seek citizenship of another country in order to do so. So please check with us and we'll be happy to help you. Again, please look us up, American-immigration-lawyer.com, onto our website, and there'll be a questionnaire and everything on there, and you're most welcome to contact us. Now, if you are outside the United States, in other words, if you're in South Africa or anywhere else, then the application for the E2 visa is physically done at the consulate in your country. Typically, the way that works is we will prepare a package with all the documentation. We will send that with the requirements of that particular consulate to the consulate. We will prepare you, and you will go and have an interview at the consulate in order to have yours and your family's visas approved and stamped into your passports. Typically, once approved, this is granted for 5 years, but initially maybe for 2 or 3 years. Now, this visa is somewhat different than most other non-immigrant visa applications or petitions, in that this is granted at the consulate, whereas all other visas or most other non-immigrant visas are granted in the United States first, approved in the United States first, and then sent to the consulate for verification and for stamping in the passport. So if you're doing an L1 visa, for example, or even an EB5 visa, this is typically approved in the United States. And once that has been done, this gets sent off to the US consulate for the interview and for verification. The E2 visa, on the other hand, original jurisdiction vests at the US consulate, and therefore at the particular officer's discretion that's doing the interviewing. So it is critical that we do all of our work properly, and that the petition is fully documented, sent off to the consulate, that you are fully prepared at the time of your interview. And of course, that is what we are equipped to do, and my staff is trained to do. We will guide you all the way through the process. Now, the petition is based upon the strength of the application, of course, and on your financial strength and other related matters. So you want to know that the underlying business, whether it's a new business or an existing business, appears to be viable. The officer who's doing the interviewing has a number of priorities. He needs to see, and bear in mind, he's typically not an accountant or a financial specialist. He's an immigration officer. So therefore, he would need to see from the documentation in hand that this appears to be a viable business. Now, how does he do this? If it's a new business, of course, we need to have a substantial business plan. We need to see that the money is in place. We need to see that the premises are secured and that you've taken all steps to operate the business, but for the visa being approved. If it's an existing business, on the other hand, of course, a lot of that has already been done because the business has been operating. There is turnover, there are premises, there is staff, you're paying your taxes, you're doing whatever it is, and therefore his concerns may be alleviated to a large extent. And the application may therefore be approved on a more accessible or an easier basis to do. Now, it is possible also to apply for an E2 visa in the United States. So if, for example, you're here in the United States on a tourist visa or a student visa or any other visa, it is possible to change your status providing you're eligible to do so, which includes changing your status to that of an E2 visa. So the way that that would work is we would file in the United States for your change of status to get your E2 visa. The criteria are somewhat the same, except that there's no interview. All of this is done on paper and done at the appropriate immigration service center. Once that is approved, of course, you can continue on in the United States to operate your business and to do your thing. Once you do leave the United States for any purpose, of course, you'll need to go back to the US consulate in your country and would need to go through the whole procedure, as we discussed earlier, as to how this can be approved. Of course, once you've been operating your business, life is much simpler at the US consulate because you've already walked the walk, so to speak, and been able to show that you are in fact operating the business. All right, let's continue on. The spouse of the E2 visa who comes in can obtain employment authorization. Incidentally, your spouse and your kids may not be the same nationality as you. So let's say, for example, you hold the Lithuanian passport, but your spouse and children do not. That's perfectly in order. They can still come in, and your spouse can get work authorization and so on. Just a point on premium processing. Premium processing is an expedited processing option which is available to you in the United States if you want to change your status. So typically, whereas it may take 3 to 6 months to be approved, if you're in the United States and if you're in a hurry, by payment of an additional premium to the US government, premium processing is available, which means that this could be approved within 15 days from filing. Some of the disadvantages of the E2 visa are that you cannot automatically adjust yourself to get a green card, because that would be deemed to be self-sponsorship under the immigration regulations. So therefore, you would need another basis to get your green cards. Now, that could be by means of employment. Either you or your spouse could be offered employment by a potential employer in the United States, or by transitioning into an EB5. Let us hope that your business does well and makes lots of money, or you win the lottery, or whatever it might be. You can then invest the $900,000, which is the sum under present regulations, in order to get yourself a green card through the EB5, and therefore transition from an E2 visa into the EB5. Just another point, that your kids under the E visa cannot work, but of course they can go to school. The funds that you invest must be at risk. You cannot simply invest this money in a bank account or buy a property and sit back and say, well, I'm now organized and I don't need to do anything else. That E visa will not be approved. The other point is, whenever you need to renew the E2 visa, you're going to have to go back to the US consulate in order to do this once you leave the United States. All right, let's have a look at a couple of graphic displays to explain how the E2 visa compares to some of the other visas. Our firm is very active also in L1 visas, which are intra-company transfer visas, which allow for the setting up of branches or subsidiaries of companies in the United States. Now, those are known as L1 visas, and for an L1 visa, it is necessary to keep your foreign corporation, your South African entity in this case, active, and you need to establish a branch office in the United States. The South African company needs to hold at least 51% of the shares of the corporation in the United States, and you would be transferred across as an executive, a manager, or a person with specialized knowledge. That relationship needs to remain for the duration of the visa until such time as you have a green card. So you need to set up a corporation in the United States. Typically, you're given 1 year to set up and operate, and from there you'd be given extensions of 2 years at a time. It is necessary to set up a hierarchy for the L1 visa. So there needs to be an executive, there needs to be a manager, and there needs to be a number of employees. And that typically is the way the L1 works. If you're coming in to set up a new business, you're given 1 year. If you're coming into an existing business in the United States, typically you'd be given 3 years to operate, bearing in mind that your South African operation needs to continue in existence all the while. Let us compare that to an E2 visa. For the E2 visa, you do not need a foreign corporation. What you need to be is a foreign national of an E2 visa country. You need to put up a substantial investment, which typically is at least $100,000. And by the way, different consulates determine differently what a substantial investment is. So if you're in Colombia and South America, for example, they may think that $80,000 may be sufficient. Whereas if you're at the US consulate in London or in Paris, they may think that $100,000 may be the bare minimum that you would need to invest. So of course, again, we would advise you and we would guide you all the way through that process. So once you've put up your money, you need, of course, to set up or buy a business or a franchise. And once you've done that, you can apply for the E2 visa. You need to hold at least 50% of the ownership of a US corporation. And therefore, by definition, it is possible for 2 people from E2 visa countries to hold 1 corporation. So it could be you and a friend, you and a relative that could each hold 50% of the US business. Of course, each of you will have to invest $100,000. There is one additional exception to that. If there is someone of the same nationality as you that is qualified to work or to manage the business as may be required by you, it is possible to bring that person in as an essential worker to come in and work in your US company without having to invest the additional $100,000. So that is something which is useful and which may be called upon as necessity requires. In terms of a timeline, the L1 visa petition, typically 3 to 5 months, unless you go with premium processing. And again, you need to keep all of these things in place. You have to have been employed for at least a year in the foreign corporation. That petition is filed with the USCIS in the United States. If you go with premium processing, expedited processing, that gets approved. Then you go to the US consulate, which takes about 2 or 3 months. And as I've indicated previously, typically that would take 1 year for a new office and 3 years for an existing business in the United States for the approval period. Then you're allowed into the United States under the multiple entry L1 visa, and you continue to have your L status. The E2 visa, on the other hand, you don't need to have a foreign corporation, as we've discussed. You purchase an existing business or set up a new business. There's no USCIS filing in the United States. All of this is filed at the US consulate. And at that interview, you would be given 2 to 3 years typically initially, and then 5 years for extensions. Now, the E2 citizenship is really a solution for all foreign nationals. If you have the necessary initiative and some capital, you can certainly make this work for you. The foreign national is required to be a citizen of the E-visa country, as we've discussed. And of course, we have the list of treaty countries, and we can certainly talk about that as we discussed earlier. The investor needs to be a citizen of one of those countries, but the spouse and children do not. So the graphic display is set out below. You choose a country, and I've given the example of Turkey, Grenada, and Montenegro, which are some of the countries that offer citizenship. Today, we're talking about Grenada, which to us appears to be the simplest and most logical way to proceed. And certainly, Mir will be discussing that in some more detail. Usually, these countries require an investment in real estate. And again, Mir will discuss how Grenada works and how quickly that can be done. So in the case of Grenada, that could be 3 to 4 months. You'd get citizenship in Grenada. And from there, you'd obtain your E2 citizenship. And immediately we can invest in the United States, as I've indicated, in a business or setting up of a business, which may take 3 to 4 months. Then we would file for the E2 visa at a US consulate closest to you. So that is the graphic formula as to how we achieve this. And again, we will guide you all the way through this process. So sometimes choosing whether to proceed on an E2 or an L1 may be a cost factor, and also other factors. As I've indicated earlier, the L1 requires the foreign corporation to be in place. There's no specific initial investment required, but you do need to show that you have sufficient money to set up and operate your business and to draw a salary and to set up the organizational hierarchy, as I've indicated earlier. Executive or manager, underneath a manager, and then a number of employees. You do need to show in terms of the L1 that this is a viable business and will remain a viable business, and the foreign corporation needs to remain in existence and needs to remain viable until such time as you get your green card. The E2 visa, on the other hand, is the setting up or buying into a US corporation, the initial investment of $100,000. We do need to have some kind of hierarchy in the organization. You could be a passive executive. You do need to be in effective control of that business. You then need to have a supervisor or a manager and some essential employees. You, of course, need to have a payroll. You need to show that you can afford to operate and to remain viable in that business. These are just some figures, but these are random figures because this is just a random exercise. All right, how do you get to a green card? From an E2 to an EB5, as I've indicated, you need to put up the additional capital. Incidentally, that capital could be borrowed. That capital could be gifted. You don't necessarily have to get the funds from your own resources or from your own business. Of course, as I've indicated earlier, let's hope that your business is successful. And of course, you can get these additional funds by means of dividends out of your business and invest that into the United States. into an EB5 regional center or something else of that nature, which we can certainly discuss with you. So that probably is a 2.5 to 3.5 year process, maybe quicker. Every month, the US Immigration Service comes out with a visa bulletin determining how long these petitions are taking to process. If you're on an L1, on the other hand, anytime after the first year, typically you can file for a green card. Unless you're coming into an existing business, then it might be quicker. And that process is typically 12 to 18 months to be approved. So just some future trends. E2 visa, a couple of months to process. The L1, a couple of months to process. An L1 to the green card, which is the EB1C, 18 months approximately. EB5, 2 to 4 years approximately. Just a brief note before I conclude. Consular processing is very extensive nowadays. We assist clients worldwide. We go where accessible to consulates or liaise with the consulates on your behalf. We'll speak to the senior consular officers. We will work all of this out for you and put the entire roadmap in place for you. Many clients do have issues or could have issues in that at some point you may have picked up a conviction for something silly or for anything else, or you may have overstayed or found that you have worked without work authorization in the United States or had any kind of issues. And for these, there may be waivers available to you, which should be filed in conjunction with your visa application. And again, we will go through all of these with you, and we will assist you to get all of this. So we will do all of this for you. We will guide you all the way through the process. And we look forward to working with you and to chatting with you soon to do so. At the end of the session, remember, we are going to have a question and answer session also to answer any kind of questions. But at any point, please feel free to ask your questions. I'm now going to introduce you to Mr. Mir Farouk Mahmoud, who's standing by. He is a senior business development director at Range Developments in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Mir has an MBA by qualification. He's over 24 years of sales and business experience in Africa, Middle East, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. He's a seasoned banker, has held many senior positions with top banks such as Citibank, HSBC, and SCB. For the past 8 years, Mir has been working as a key member of Range Developments in their core team based out of Dubai. During his tenure with Range, he's traveled extensively across the globe, promoting Range Developments' high-end 5-star luxury resorts. And I hope to experience some of these pretty soon, Mr. Mir. Range has already successfully built and delivered Park Hyatt in St. Kitts and Nevis and opened the Kempinski Hotel, which is my personal favorite brand in Dominica. On the 2nd of November 2019, the Kempinski is opened, and I look anxiously to go and visit that one. He's currently promoting the Six Senses Grenada, which is their third project. I hand you over to Mir, and I'm looking forward to his presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for participating today. I will be definitely, and thank you, Grant, for a great introduction. I will be going through my slides today, what we've done in past, and which projects we're currently into. So just let me get into my slides. So Range Developments, we build for the future, meaning we have actually, Range Developments is a national development company that only focuses on developing ultra-luxury hotels and resorts in the countries that benefits from citizenship by investment programs. Meaning, our first project, as Mr. Grant has just explained to you, the Park Hyatt in St. Kitts, is already been up and running. My slides. Wait a second. Something going wrong with the slides. Yeah, sorry about that. So Range Development's first project has been the Park Hyatt in St. Kitts. The hotel opened doors in November 2017. Basically, we are the only developers who are building on these islands in the Caribbean. The second project, which Mr. Grant has just explained you, the Kempinski in Dominica, is again a flagship hotel which has been opened up. What we're going to be concentrating today more is on Grenada, which is again the 5-star luxury hotel, Six Senses. Regards to our previous two hotels, which is the Kempinski and the Park Hyatt, which are operational, Caribbean Journal has given great reviews about the beautiful hotels on these islands. These are the three projects. The number one, the Park Hyatt St. Kitts. Number two is the Kempinski in Dominica. And number three, which we are going to get into more detail because of Grenada benefits and the E2 treaty with the US. Let me explain you a little bit how does this work. The investor has to keep the investment for 5 years, which is the investment amount is around 220,000 US dollars. So as far as Park Hyatt is concerned, which has been opened in 2017 November, it comprises of 126 rooms and suites, 3 restaurants and destination spa. So we as developers, which is Range Developments, have sold the inventory. Basically, we had 400 investors in this particular project, which has been sold out. Now, if anybody wishes to obtain a passport and a citizenship of St. Kitts, how does that operate? The holding period for your investment is 5 years. So let's say, for example, in the year 2012, 13, 14, 15, who have completed their 5 years of investment time, are eligible to sell the share to the new person, the new investor who's investing in Park Hyatt to obtain a second citizenship. So that's why the slide says the inventory of the shares of the hotel are only available for resale. Again, on coming back to the Park Hyatt, on Condé Nast's 2018 hot list, and CNN Travel has also mentioned as the number one on their top 14 list of the best new hotels and resorts in the Caribbean. So you can well imagine the standards of the hotel. Again, about Park Hyatt, the New York Times, the Forbes, Travel Weeks, and People have highlighted our projects in their magazines. Coming to our second project, which is the Kempinski in Dominica. Again, we've been highlighted by Forbes, Caribbean Journal, and Condé Nast Travel. This is how exactly the Kempinski Hotel looks like, the interior and the exterior of the hotel. I will be touching base more on Grenada, and I will be telling you why it gives you more benefits when you're putting in exactly the same amount as compared to the other sister islands. So let me explain you a little bit more on this chart, why Grenada supersedes the other 4 Caribbean destinations. There are 2 ways to obtain a citizenship. One is through a route of donation. You put in a certain number of funds and you don't recover that money again. That's a route of donation. What we're going to talk about today is only on the real estate options. So all these 5 countries in the Caribbean obtain a real estate option and a donation option. But here, the benefits of Grenada supersedes the other 4 Caribbean countries, and which is why I'm going to explain you this chart, which is self-explanatory, but I'll take you through each step, which will help you to understand with putting in the same amount of investment of $220,000 into an approved project of the government gets you more benefits, which is Grenada. So let's start. So real estate option, all 4 or 5 countries, they have it. So minimum investment in the real estate side is $220,000 for Grenada, St. Kitts $200,000, Dominica is $200,000, real estate in St. Lucia is $300,000, and Antigua is $200,000. They all have free access to UK and Schengen. We agree on that. Visa free to Russia. We're looking into only 3 countries which provides you this benefit, which is Grenada, St. Kitts, and Dominica. Visa free to China. Only Grenada has this visa free to China, except All the other 4 countries are crosses. Visa-free arrival to UAE, only Grenada offers you the visa-free access. No requirement of residency or visit. So physical residency or going onto the island to live there, to qualify for citizenship is not there. So you don't have to reside there, live there, visit the place, which is Grenada. No requirement, resale, as I said, is only available in the 3 countries, which is Grenada, St. Kitts, and Dominica. The other 2, St. Lucia and Antigua, doesn't have a resale to the subsequent buyer after 5 years who's obtaining or wishing to obtain a citizenship. So basically, if you have bought something in Antigua under a real estate, there's no resale for your share or your title deed. So that makes more beneficial for the investors to exit out of this program of Grenada after 5 years, because there's a resale value for it. Again, there's a holding periods are a little different. For Grenada, it's 5 years into 7 years of investment and 5 years for Dominica. Now you will see the more benefits coming up on the Grenada side than the other 4 countries. Internationally recognized accredited university, only in Grenada and St. Kitts. Now here the fun part starts. E2 treaty with US, only Grenada offers it. All the other 4 countries is cross. Additions of siblings, only Grenada. So you can add your siblings, unmarried brothers and sisters, under the same application and the same amount, provided you have to pay a certain extra government fee on top. Addition of the parents below 55, only Grenada offers that. Addition of grandparents, only Grenada has it. So dependent children above the age of 18 do not have to be into full-time education. Only Grenada offers that. And citizenship can be passed on to 3 generations and beyond. Only Grenada offers. So this is how the benefits are being categorized, and you can well see by investing in Grenada, you're taking more advantages and benefits besides the other 4 Caribbean countries. Here's the countries, which is around 130 plus countries, which are visa-free access for your travel. And coming back to the St. George's University of Grenada, students from 140 countries coming and studying in the med school, and it's been accredited by the US. Here are some case studies and examples which we have seen practically once your application has been submitted in the unit, in Grenada Citizenship Unit. The whole processing time to get yourself approved as a main applicant along with your family members is around 92 days. We've seen cases in 81 days. We've seen approvals in 78 days. So once the file is prepared and submitted, you're looking at a turnaround time of maximum 90 days to obtain a citizenship. So that's 3 months. So within 3 months, you obtain a physical passport, which already has given you access to the whole world, which is 140 countries for travel reasons. Now, the step 2, which is the E2 part to move to US, will only be applicable once you have a Grenadian citizenship. And that's where what Mr. Grant and Mr. Ramin has explained to you in the earlier slides. So I would not like to touch and repeat the same E2 process because it's been thoroughly discussed already. Basically, what I would say is that E2 and EB5, what is the best advantage? Because there are a lot of countries which have a backlog, which is Chinese to do an EB5 program is taking around good 15 years. For an Indian, it's around 8 to 10 years. For a person from Vietnam, it's taking around, again, 8 to 10 years. So what are they doing? The countries with having no E2 treaty on their citizenship, this is the way they're moving to US on a faster route by paying and doing an investment of $220,000 and taking a route of E2 with their substantial amount of money of their own capital being invested in US, and they and themselves and their spouse and their children under the age of 21 move to US. And free what is the great benefit? Free high school education for children in the US with E2 visa, and in-state college tuition rates apply. So basically, you're saving a substantial amount of cost for your children's education in US while you're running a business. This slide, EB5, Ramin has covered it. E2 has been covered thoroughly by Mr. Grant, so I'm going to skip this one. Here are some samples which we would like you to show to you guys that E2 visas actually are there. You, as Mr. Grant explained, you go to your local US consulate or embassy and you do an over-the-counter an interview, and there you go. Within 2 to 3 months, you've been granted a stamp for E2 to move to US. So the whole process, what we're talking here is, once you have obtained the Grenada passport, the citizenship, within the time frame of 3 months, by investing in a 5-star luxury hotel, which is the 6 senses, and the step 2 is the E2 part, which is our partners would be helping you to assist you. Coming down to the cost. So as I explained to you, the $220,000 is the investment amount, which goes into the hotel, which is approved by the government with the 6 senses. Then on top, you have to pay some due diligence, application fee, processing fee. Once this process has been submitted and the fee is submitted, the next step is the waiting time for the due diligence to come back to the main applicant and saying, you've been approved. Once you've been approved as a citizen, you get a letter from them. You don't have to go there, reside there, visit their place. And once you pay the government fee, the shared registration, which is a stamp duty, and then the passport fee, oath of allegiance, it's looking around $299,000, $880,000 US, plus some legal fee on top. It's a typical example for a family of 4 with children at the age of below the age of 16. And this is just an example, but different families will have different ages of the children. The composition of the family can be determined. We can issue you and tell you the right cost for each family we're looking into. The hotel is going to open in November 2022, and 6 senses in Grenada is exactly going to start looking like this. Once it's completed, we are in the phase of starting the construction. The site is getting cleared up, and we'll be on it very soon, and the completion is in November 2022. From here, I would like to end my discussion, and then I'm happy to take all the questions, whoever would like to ask us. And I would like to ask Sonia to come by. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mia. And I'd just like to thank everybody for participating. I see we don't have any questions yet. We're going to go into the Q&A. So if anybody has questions, on the right-hand block, you'll see a chat icon, and you'll be able to ask direct questions to any of the experts. Other than that, I just want to thank Mr. Kaplan, Mr. Asgard, and Mia Farouk from Range as well. And we look forward to interacting with you. I've spoken to most of you. Some of you know me. You know where to contact us, either Jessica or on our website, or you can mail me directly, or either of the participants if you've got a question later on. My contact details, just before ending off again, is just my mobile, is 083-408-5681. And yes, we look forward to taking the discussions further. I know there's a few people that are very interested to proceed and just don't know where to start. So we are here for you. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions, of course, now's the time to ask them. Otherwise, please get back to us afterwards at any point, and we'll be very happy to help you and to answer you, and look forward to working with you on this exciting journey, getting you here to the United States. You too could be up at 4 a.m. one day participating in a conference.
Hello, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the presentation. The group, distinguished group that you've heard from, represent essentially every step you need to take to pursue a life in the United States. And it's important to note that, as Mr. Kaplan has noted, that the attorney that works on this matter is working for you. It takes a bit to put these types of projects together. It takes quite a bit to arrange for a citizenship by investment program of the caliber that Range Developments and MIR have done in Grenada. And it takes a bit to have a great project available for you. So I'd like to thank you all for listening to the whole package of presentations. That's what the process entails. We do have a couple questions that have rolled in. So we have a question which is about children becoming 21 while an application is pending. And it also follows up with a question about work in the United States. And then it talks a little bit, there's a separate question about what happens when the children on an E2 reach 21. So about that age 21 and some things that happen, I'm going to turn to Mr. Kaplan and Grant, if you wouldn't mind. These are some questions that have to do with that issue.
Yeah, sure. All right. So kids under 21 are included in any non-immigrant visa application. Once they turn 21, unless you have physically filed for the green card at that point, the kids age out. So under the E2 scenario or the L1 scenario, kids can come in as your derivative beneficiaries. They can go to school. They cannot work until such time as you physically have filed for your green card. So how do you do that? Once you've filed, for example, for the EB5, even though the kids may subsequently turn 21 before the EB5 has been adjudicated, they will nevertheless be able to benefit as beneficiaries under the provisions of the Child Status Protection Act. So let's assume that they are age 20 when you file for the EB5, but that process may take 2 or 3 years to be approved. That's perfectly in order. They are protected. So even if they subsequently age out, as they say, they are still protected under the provisions of the Child Status Protection Act. They cannot work until such time as you have physically filed for the adjustment of status. In other words, after the EB5 has been approved, or after the labor certification has been approved, in the case that they are going to be, you're going to be offered employment by an employer. So that's really the position there. Now, so that deals with that. There is another question saying there's some confusion between the period of the E2 visa, whether it's 2 years or 5 years. Typically, it's granted initially for 2 to 3 years, and then extended for 5-yearly periods at a time. So I hope that explains it, and certainly I'll be happy to answer any other questions, and I hope I've explained that sufficiently for you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Grant. As I mentioned earlier, immigration law is a very technical field of law in the United States. There are all these provisions. We realize that the groups of folks we're talking with who are doing investment-based immigration are generally high net worth individuals. They are generally well educated and are generally very successful in their life. However, these, again, I caution everyone, these are not do-it-yourself type programs. It really does require not just an immigration attorney, it requires an immigration attorney focused and concentrated on business immigration and investment immigration. So when you receive such advice, it's tempered by decades of experience in a changing field. New regulations come out monthly, and so it's very important to go with someone who's highly qualified, and it's a real honor to be working with Mr. Kaplan on this. Further, the project you pick, I want to speak to that just a second, and then we'll get back to this question, which is a terrific question, and we'll touch on it. While in theory it's possible to invest something like 100 or 200,000, 150,000 into an E2, it's important to note, you know, the E2 visa is scrutinized the same way every kind of visa is. And if you have a high quality visa project that is put forward, that will have a much higher chance of success than one that may be a little bit less developed. So statistically, 64% of E2 consular applications are over $10 million. The percentage that's below 300,000 is very low. So it is possible to go lower. However, it comes with the risk that the consular officer will look at that as really going kind of minimal and trying to cut corners. First Pathway, we don't cut corners. We want to give you something that is airtight, that will give you the results you want, which you don't want to have to worry. At the end of all this, investing and due diligence and proving your source of funds and everything else, you get to the visa window and you wind up in a situation where the visa is either refused or the visa is sent back for review. Either way, your plans are set back substantially for months or indefinitely. So we take it very seriously. That's why we structured our project the way we did, to make it something that you can rely upon. We have a question about the usual timeline for background due diligence. Now, there's two separate processes that are run in this case. There's the due diligence that is done by Grenada for the citizenship application when you invest there. And there's the due diligence that's done by the consular officer when you present your source of funds documentation for how you got the investment funds. Now, turning back to the EB5, if you do an EB5 at the 900,000 rate of investment, the price of investment, the due diligence done there is done in the United States by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, California Service Center. That due diligence is also extensive. So there are three types of due diligence. There's the citizenship due diligence for Grenada. There's the due diligence source of funds for the E2. There's the due diligence source of funds analysis for the EB5. Time frames vary. I will let Mir touch on the due diligence timeline for Grenada. If you have, Mir, an estimate that you can provide about how long the overall process takes, but how long the due.
Yeah, thanks, Ramin. Great question. What we're looking into is, again, as I said in the presentation, it's a time frame which is between 3 months. So once the applicant is ready to submit the documents, so the documents are very simple and straightforward. It's like the birth certificate, the pictures, the passport size pictures, marriage certificate, police certificate, some bank statements for 12 months from your personal account or your company account. Once the whole compiling is done for the documentation, it's been submitted at the unit. So once the application is submitted, and few of my slides, which I was showing, the approval is coming between 70 days to 90 days. So once the approval comes in, you're looking at to pay the final balance payment, and within 3 to 4 weeks, you have your physical passports. Basically, the turnaround is very quick, fast, and as I said, you don't have to move there, live there, reside there, and everything has been taken care of, our offices worldwide, and that's the process. And the due diligence is basically to check if all these documents have been given properly, because once you have a citizenship, it's giving you the accessibility and to travel visa-free access to 140 countries, including all this China, Shenzhen, UK, and the world doors open up. So basically, it's a travel document which just gives you the access to reach out to different countries for example, if you're a South African, for that example wise, living in South Africa, and you need to be in Paris tomorrow, for example, you have to go through a process. You have to apply for your Schengen visa. So imagine you lose the opportunity of, if the visa doesn't come through, or it takes another 15, 20 days, and your appointments have got canceled because of that, and you have not reached out to people, and you lost a business opportunity. So due diligence is a process which is given to a third party to check on a client, on the main applicant and the family members, whatever the documents have been provided are for real, and that's how the citizenship is granted if you have not done anything wrong. Thank you. Over to you, Ramin.
Thanks very much, Mir. Hello.
Any more questions from anybody?
All right, it seems that we're at the end of questions. Sonia, I'll thank you so much for the hospitality. I realize we're in a virtual space, but I also realize that a lot of our folks are on here from South Africa, and our thoughts and prayers are with them as they and all of us are trying to get through a tough period. We really, really were honored to be able to speak with them, and thank you and Grant as stellar representatives of South Africa for the great insights you provided during this time. So I'll turn to you, and if anyone else has any other comments, and I'll sign off.
I think that we can wrap it up for today. You've all got our contact details, and I'm sure the discussions will continue as they have already, and we look forward to your comments. Thank you very much, everybody, and to our experts. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, guys. Nice to chat to you. Nice to meet you, and looking forward to working with you soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.